Hi, my name is Lindsay Farrell, and welcome to this session, Meet the Architects, where we will talk about our capital projects in Ossining. I've been at Open Door for 40 years. Open Door has been in the community for 50 years. It's truly a part of the fabric of Ossining, and certainly in the other communities where we also operate. Our mission has always been to provide high quality, accessible, personalized healthcare, regardless of one's ability to pay, in order to build healthier families and communities. Over the years, our footprint has expanded, and we've opened many new sites to meet the rising patient demand across Westchester. These changes have allowed us to better meet the needs of our neighbors and continue to provide them with high quality health care. As we approached our half century, the board of directors took a hard look at where we were and the future that we imagined for our organization. And we developed a comprehensive strategic plan aimed at intentionally enhancing our delivery of care to reach the most vulnerable families earlier and to serve more patients. As a part of that strategic plan, we conducted a facility master plan. And guided by those findings, we considered how we were utilizing our spaces and how we could make adjustments in our facilities to maximize our efficiency. That's when we had the great fortune of engaging with Canon Design, a global architectural design firm with a specialty in healthcare design. It's when we had the great privilege of meeting Rob Masters and John Reed, who'll be presenting to you today. You're likely familiar with Canon's work, which includes design projects at a number of high-profile clients, including New York Presbyterian, Northwell Health, NYU Langone, Trinity Health, St. Peter's Health Partners, Cedars-Sinai, Mass General, Carnegie Mellon, University of Chicago Medicine, the University of Pennsylvania, and Johns Hopkins, just to name a few. That's why we're so thrilled to be working with them. Achieving our vision of better health outcomes for all of our neighbors requires facilities that match our capabilities. And John and Rob have been our partners throughout this design process. As many of you know, Open Door began a multi-stage construction project, beginning with the renovation of 2 Church Street, which will allow us to double and transform our clinical space in Ossining, and eventually renovate and reimagine our Portchester site. While planning for Portchester has begun in the initial phases, construction is already underway at 2 Church Street, which is currently in the middle of a demolition process. Once enough progress has been made at 2 Church, we will turn our attention to 165 Main Street so as to minimize any disruption to our patient care. Now that the project is underway, we wanted to give you, our closest friends and supporters of Open Door, a behind-the-scenes look at what to expect. You're going to hear from Rob and John about the very intentional approach that we've taken to the design and the philosophy behind their plans for the 2 buildings, how they will relate to one another, how our staff and our patients will experience them, and how the plans are grounded in a strong sense of place, including the building's relationship with the historic aqueduct. While the presentation will focus on Ossining as the first phase of the construction project, they will also introduce a design philosophy and approach that will be applied to our Portchester location as well. At the conclusion of the presentation, there'll be time for follow-up discussion and questions. So please join me now in welcoming Rob and John. Thank you.
So we're going to show you a few drawings here that we made to understand the scheme and to explain the scheme. We make drawings really about the exploration of the design problems that we're working on. And so we're using a tool here called an axonometric, showing the 3-dimensional development of the buildings. It's a cool tool because you can see 2 sides of the building. So you're seeing elevation. You get a sense of the scale of the buildings, their relationship across the street. To the north and above is 2 Church Street building, previously a bank. Below is the 165 Main Street, currently the existing facility. And of course, going between the 2 of them is this really interesting feature in Ossining called the aqueduct. And we've used that as a bit of a design prompt to engage the development of the 2 Church Street project, which involved more new construction. Let's go one more, please. It's a really interesting piece of the city of Ossining. This underground connection between the reservoir to the north and New York City to the south. And interestingly enough, it was primarily about developing hygienic water and making sure that people were healthy in New York City that led to the development of this. And we think there's a great symbolism about having that cross the threshold between these 2 buildings. And I won't read all of the little text there on the side. Suffice it to say that it's a really interesting piece of the fabric, and some of the geometric connections that where the water is flowing and the people are walking and you're walking on these paths is a beautiful experience to walk along. Next. When we looked at the 2 Church Street building, we wanted to identify the salient features of its design, and whatever we were going to add, and we're going to add something in the corner here at the bottom of the drawing, we wanted to relate to the scale and the proportion of the building. The building is a white stucco building with dark mullions, and it has these bays that sit forward of the ground floor. So there are these floating bays that break up the scale and mass of the building. Next. Within those bays, there's a further breakdown of fenestration, and there's a sort of scale to these panels that float out over the sidewalk. Go one more. And so what we're doing is creating another one of those bays, but we didn't want to make it exactly like the existing building. We wanted to make something special. We wanted to make it a bit like a beacon on the corner of this intersection and have a device that would pull you up and into the building. So you could see that activity was happening. At night, it will glow, and it'll be a new form maybe of advertising for this building. Go one more. And then at the ground level, we wanted to make a podium for this new glass pavilion to engage the aqueduct. So there would be seating areas on it. There would be things that could happen. You could have a hot dog stand sitting next to it, and people could be sitting there in the middle of the day eating. And we thought that engagement with the aqueduct and that engagement with the city was really important.
I'm going to talk you through the insides because as John is the design principal, I'm the healthcare principal. So I focus on the clinical spaces and responding to patient need and care team need as it relates to our design response on the inside of the building. But before I do, I'll just note too that one of the things that's been great about this project and kind of reaching back to the aqueduct as such a source of inspiration for this dialogue with the village, but also the dialogue across the street between the 2 facilities. It's been a really wonderful process engaging with the State Parks Department and the folks that are focused specifically on the old Croton Aqueduct to really understand how we could tie our facility together with this really great landmark that is also, as John indicated, is tied directly to public health, and such a wonderful parallel that really inspired the design. And we're really appreciative of that opportunity, but also of the great partnership we've had with the Parks Department and the Historic Preservation team on being able to drive this forward. So talking about the design response to the inside of the building, we did a couple of things that really related very specifically to that new pavilion, to the entry lantern that we've created on the corner of the building. One was to use that as the catalyst for the public space in the building. So here on the ground floor, as you're entering from Church Street, our public lobby that serves for reception and waiting is right off of that new pavilion, and it houses a new communicating stair and elevator that connect the 2 floors together. So it becomes this hub that really ties all of the clinical space together in the building. We organized the main clinic space here on the ground floor off of that space, along with a dedicated behavioral health space off of the rear of that, and at the back of the building, we've created an offstage space for the team to work, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment as we look at that same design response on the upper level. So here we've rotated the public space to the Church Street face of the building. So still working off of that new pavilion and the elevator and stair, but now connecting between that and also the entrance from the parking. So all of the sequence of arrival to the building is all tied together by the multiple points of entrance, working with the existing elevations of the building and tying everything together with this new beacon, this lantern that looks out to the city and looks out to the aqueduct. The clinics here are also organized in a similar fashion right off of the space. We've organized them in specific clusters so that the teams can be very efficient in delivering care and can organize around the physicians and the care extenders that are working in each of the clinics. There's team space here. You can see this kind of tan color where the teams are working side by side and collaborating together as they treat patients throughout the day. And then tying back to that offstage space that I mentioned before, where the clinical teams can huddle for small meetings. They can take a bit of a break at lunch or to have an inter-site coordination meeting between the various open door sites around the county. And it really gives them a place to land when they're not in clinic, but continuing to work throughout the day to stay connected to the team and stay very much a part of the collaborative enterprise of delivering care to the community of Ossining.
Let's talk a little bit about the area outside the building, this podium, the seating area. We wanted to make something that was comfortable, place that would be nice to sit on and spend some time. And we also wanted to make sure that there were steps to get up to the front door. So there's a variety of different things that are happening in this space. This is a plan view, so you can see that at the top part of the drawing, there's a couple of steps straight up to the front door. There's an easy way to get in around those steps too. There's a little ramp. And then the steps step down the hill. So there's more steps on the lower side facing the aqueduct than there are on the uphill side facing the street. Go one more, please, Rob. And we started with the drawing on the right. And as we began to think about it and transform it, it got more sculptural. And it ended up more like the drawing on the bottom left with integrated wood benches on top of the stone, cast stone seating areas. There are little lights underneath these so that it's nice to sit on at nighttime. The handrails have lights underneath them to direct you up. And we're concentrating the seating in the areas that we want to have it. So we think that we found a really good solution to deal with how you interact with the street and how you interact with the aqueduct. At the cube, at this glowing lantern, we also have a series of louvers. And those louvers are there to block the direct sunlight and the glare, to keep the space inside cool. And then we have a way of integrating the new logo, into that surface. So there are little holes drilled into it in a pattern. And when you're walking along the street, you'll be able to see this from longer distance. We thought it was a nice way to bring that motif into the architecture of the building. This is a view, a street view that we've rendered into a photograph that we had taken from it, and you get an idea of what it might look like. The mullions are the same colors, the mullions on the existing building, and the stairs and the steps are rendered. This was our earlier version. We don't have a new one yet. We're still working on that. And you get an idea of the scale and the presence of this new entry on the street and how it relates to the aqueduct.
We also wanted to spend some time really thinking about the details of this new addition to the building, and being very sensitive to the state park space that is represented by the aqueduct, and understanding the impact on the exterior the outside environment that the building could have. We knew that things like bird safety, as an example, were very specific, that we needed to understand how this pavilion would function. We worked very closely with the American Bird Conservancy to identify the right design approach for the glazing of the new entry pavilion. We landed on a product manufactured by Guardian called Bird First Etch that gives us an embedded characteristic to the glass that allows for it to be perceived and ultimately safe for birds in terms of impact on flight and migration. And it was a very appropriate component of this this very site-specific design response to how we could reposition this building for open doors. So it was a wonderful additional facet to the design that we worked closely with Michelle and the team at the Bird Conservancy to ensure we had a strong approach for the design. We also have been working, just as we did with the Parks Department and the old Croton Aqueduct team, on that response. We've been working closely with the village throughout the design process, and that's continued across the street to 165 Main, where we've been working closely with the Historic Preservation Committee to ensure that the design moves that we've needed to make to bring the clinics at 165 up to modern standards. And that in part relates specifically to the air systems that we need to install to support the clinics, has a good design response for the neighborhood as well. So you can see here, we've been working on some rendered imagery about how we can contextualize the enclosures for the new air handlers that we need to install on the roof and allow them to feel much more a part of the fabric of the building and not just equipment sitting on the roof. So it's been a very good partnership. We're actually meeting with them again in a couple of days, and hopefully moving forward with our design strategy for 165 Main.